Okay, if you're joining us, this is a live stream for Mr. Raymond Cauchi's presentation to Central Elementary students. Mr. Cauchi is running for the mayor of Chilliwack, and so we would like to formally welcome him to Central Elementary School, and we look forward to his brief presentation and then a couple of questions from students. So I'm going to pass you over to Mr. Cauchi.
How are we doing?
Perfect.
Okay, so thank you for inviting me into your classroom. If you haven't already sorted that out, I am running to be mayor of Chilliwack. And Mr. Lister has asked me to do 5 minutes on the roles of the mayor and whatnot. Okay. So quick show of hands, who would like to know about the really fun stuff of being mayor and then the not so fun stuff about being mayor? So fun stuff for being mayor, yes. And then not so fun stuff about being mayor. Okay, so when I was looking into this process, I said, what does the mayor do? Because ironically, I didn't know exactly what a mayor did. And I was pleasantly surprised to note that one of the roles of mayor is to be a leader in times of emergency. So for example, should there be a natural disaster or should there be a riot, right? I as mayor would have to go to that place and look at it and go, yes, this is an emergency. And then I would get to make a Queen's Proclamation, right? So anybody know what a Queen's Proclamation is? No? It sounds something like this. I, Mayor of Chilliwack, declare this a riot. Please go home now in an orderly fashion, right? So I think that's pretty cool, right? I hope it never happens, but, but I think that's one of the cool things about being mayor. Now, on the flip side, right, so that should never happen. On the flip side, there's stuff that the mayor has to do every day. And one of those things is that the mayor has to be informed about what's going on in the community and has to act as a leader. So when the mayor of Abbotsford, for example, has a problem with Chilliwack, maybe we're doing something they don't like, then the two mayors get together and we talk about it and we kind of try to problem solve that, right? And one of the other major roles that a mayor has is I'm one vote on a city council, okay? And the city council is a group of people that basically kind of make laws for the city of Chilliwack. So we could, for example, make a law, and this is just an example, it's not a for real law, right? That, that on every Friday, people had to go home at 1 versus staying here forever and ever and ever. But that probably wouldn't happen because it would take a majority vote of the council, and there's 7 of us. So 7 people would have to agree, right? And that's basically what mayors do, right? We go around, talk to people, right? We participate in the community so that the city council knows what's going on, and we set a vision, right? And so I'm certain Ms. Gates and Mr. Hall and myself all have kind of different ideas of how Chilliwack should be in the future. And that's important for you guys because you're all staying in Chilliwack, right? And then you're gonna grow up here and vote and have jobs here, right? You're not going anywhere else? Yeah, he's like, I don't know. I'm in grade 6, but I haven't planned that far ahead. Yeah, me too. I didn't plan that far ahead in grade 6 either. So yeah, that's the gist of it, right? There's a little bit more in the details, right? Like you have to be well educated. You have to read a lot. You have to do a lot of research. You have to run council meetings. So every first and third Tuesday currently, the council gets together and they sort out what the business is going to be. And yeah, you basically try to make Chilliwack a better place in whatever format you can. So questions about that stuff, that kind of thing? No. Did anybody know that or ahead of time? What the mayor did ahead of time? No, yeah, right. It's kind of like, I have a friend who's an engineer and I go, so what do you do? And she goes, I do math. And I go, you get paid to do math? She's like, yep. I'm like, that sounds boring. Pardon? I'm not a math person. All right. So yeah.
So Mr. Cauchi, can you tell us some of the things that you would do if you were elected to be the mayor? These kids need to make a decision of which candidates to vote for, and this is your chance to sway them.
Okay, so all right, so this is the part where I get a bit concerned because people always want me to make promises, right? They want me to go, I promise, and this is one, I promise to have transit better in Chilliwack. I want to make more buses. I want to extend transit, make it better. I want to be able to, you know, have buses that go all the way from here to Abbotsford to Langley and back on a regular basis, right? Yeah, right. It would cost money, right? Who said that? Yeah, right. So I can't promise that, right? In fact, realistically, as mayor, I can't promise anything, right? I can say things like, "This is kind of what I hope to do." So I hope to improve transit, right? And realistically, I won't. If that was a project that we would take on as a city, it would take a couple years. So you guys are in grade 6 now, so you would be the people that would really benefit from improved transit, because there's going to be a point where you're going to be teenagers and you'll be like, I need to go, right? And a bus would be great for you guys. So that would be one of my things. So definitely the transit. There's an idea that Chilliwack is unsafe. So here, a quick show of hands. How many people think Chilliwack is unsafe? Yeah, interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. So that's a problem, right? No one likes to feel unsafe. And more importantly, no one wants to be unsafe, right? So it would be nice if people could walk around their neighborhoods and not worry about things that are unpleasant, such as criminals, drug addicts, that kind of stuff. I was shocked, for example, a couple of years ago, I heard that someone got attacked at a 7-Eleven. Right? That scared me, right? I mean, like, wow, 7-Eleven, right? And so that's a problem. So I would definitely work on that. But again, what's your name?
Renee.
As Renee pointed out, that costs money, right? And so it's always about the money in some sense. So here's a question that I'm going to ask. I'm going to try it on you guys first, and then maybe I'll ask it of adults. If you could all spend $1 additional a year to make Chilliwack safer, would you do it? Just $1.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. See, so you just voted to increase taxes. That's what you just did, right? Oh, interesting. Okay. So, for example, when people go, Mr. Cauchi, will you raise or lower taxes? I go, well, what do you want? Right? What are you willing to pay for? If you're willing to raise taxes for reducing crime, okay, I'll totally go with that. I'll agree to that. That seems like a good idea. Right? And when you there's 90,000 people in Chilliwack, right? So if everybody gave $1, and a tax increase of $1, that's a lot of money. I don't know what I do with $90,000. Right? Like, and it's just a council that'll tell me what to do with it. So we got transport, we got safety, and then I'm a big environmental guy, right? I cannot, you know, I'll probably get a lot of heckling or a lot of kickback from saying this, but when I plan, I have 5 children, so I don't plan for myself. I think I'm kind of like a lost cause. I'm old already, right? So I plan for my kids, which means I plan for other generations of people, right? So when I think about that, I go, well, will this cost my children's children, right? Yeah, right. And what's your name? Kasia. So Kasia's like, yes, it will, right? Yeah, exactly. So that's the kind of how I think about things. So, for example, there's a hazardous waste plant that's being planned on the Fraser River, right? Are you guys aware of that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, you should. Yeah. All right. So the issue for a lot of people isn't that it's a hazardous waste plant, because it's actually a recycling plant. So they take all that hazardous material, one second, right, and they recycle it so that we can use it and dispose of it safely, right? The concern is it's on a river, the Fraser River, right? And so, of course, if a mistake is made, I'm not going to pay for it. Mr. Lister's not going to pay for it, right? I'll be theoretically gone, moved on into wherever I go when I die. But my grandchildren might pay for it, right, if there's a hazardous disaster there. Right? And so that's something I need to think about. Right? And I think that's what other people need to think about as well, because your children haven't been given a choice yet. Right? So it's up to you to protect them that way. Well, that's what I think. All right. And those are the 3 big ones usually. And then people talk about business. Right? Okay, another quick show of hands. How many people shop at Walmart? Yeah, okay, thought so. There's a little shoe boutique just on the corner of Mill Street over here down there. It's a really nice shoe boutique. Does anybody know it? Yeah, you ever shop there? No, okay, yeah. And so that's, I think, the problem, right, is that we have all these awesome businesses in Chilliwack, But when you go through Chilliwack, or when you talk about Chilliwack, you go, oh, there's a Walmart there. Okay. So there's a Walmart in Langley. There's a Walmart. Right? So Walmart has this great thing called commercials and marketing, and everybody knows about them. But the local business doesn't. So I think they need to be a bit protected that way. You know, some sort of support in that sense. Because having been a business owner way back in my youth, it was a hard slog, and it wasn't even a complicated business, right? Because I was bad at it. All right, so those are the big four usually people talk about. Thoughts about that? No? Can we do questions now?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, you had a question. No?
Oh, that was me.
Okay, you had a question. What was your question?
It's about the waistline thingy above the river.
Yeah.
If it's above the river, any salmon in that river die.
Yeah, exactly, right? If there's a spill or if there's a flood, how many people know, does it flood frequently here?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right? And that's the big concern, right? So, you know, you're affecting more than just that one place. You're affecting the salmon, the river, everybody downriver from it, right? Because we're talking mercury and lead, right? And those are all very deadly, right? Okay. You got a question?
Like you said, like just think, this will affect your grandbabies.
Yeah. Right.
Like when people litter, you just like say to them, that thing, will that affect your children's children?
Right. Or how about this? Like even if we make it simpler, if you live in a neighborhood and everybody in your neighborhood has the habit of throwing their gum wrapper on the ground, someone has to pick that up, right? I don't think it's fair that, well, let me be clear. I don't think it's fair that I should have to pick it up if I live in your neighborhood, but I'm gonna anyway, right? Because if no one picks it up, then it's gonna be yucky, and I don't want to live in a yucky place, right? It's just that simple. Right? Any other questions? Oh, okay.
Okay, so guys, this is the time where I want you to kind of look at the issues that you thought were important. And so we got things like animal control, somebody talked about policing, somebody talked about flood control. So have a look at the issue, pick out your question, and then if you hold your hand up, then Mr. Cauchi can select you and you can ask your question. Try and ask your question as loud as you can so the microphone can pick it up.
Okay. You, young man.
If I elect you, will you help animals by animal shelters? With more income?
So more animal shelters and more things like SPCA.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's yes. Given that we can find a way to fund all that stuff, right? Because that's what it will always come down to. So I think that we could have more animal shelters, right? I think that keeping animals safe, not only as pets, but in the environment is important. And for example, we could start together a kind of nonprofit group, so a volunteer group that would go around and try to keep animals safe. And then all we need to do is find where to keep them, right? And I don't know what the bylaws say on that yet, so I'd have to research it. Just like, for example, I wanted to have chickens in my backyard at one point, but apparently that is not good in Chilliwack. I know, I like fresh eggs, so I was thinking about that. Yeah. Right. And then you had a question, and then I'll get to you, and then I'll get to you.
If I elected you, how would you help homeless people to get a house for their purpose?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay.
Um,
Oh, hold on. You're next. Promise. Okay. So homeless people. Okay. That one's going to require a bit of thought. So homelessness is not a disease. It's a state of affairs, right? And there's many reasons why people become homeless, right? So for example, I used to work with young people who would run away from home because their homes were so abusive that it was just better to live on the street than to be at home, all right? So in my ideal world, I would want to have a service or an organization that would be able to shelter homeless people for a temporary period of time, to let them stabilize their lives, right? To give them a sense of safety. And then I'd want to help them reintegrate back into the work environment, right? Because no one okay, let me rephrase this back up a bit. I have yet to experience someone who chooses to be homeless because they can be, right? There's usually another reason for that. Until we address that reason, it's probably going to be a cycle, all right? So more housing, possibly government funded, definitely more social support services, particularly for people between the age of 12 and 22, right? Yeah, and ideally a little bit more money going that way. But the question is, where's the money coming from always? All right, so you were next. Oh, okay, what was it?
So the question was, if I was to elect you for mayor, what are your thoughts on the sewage and the water situation in Chilliwack, and how would you make sure that it's clean?
Huh. Okay. That one has never been asked before. So good question. So having said that, as it stands, I believe that our water treatment facilities are fairly efficient, right? So our water is good as it is, right? And we are now enjoying the benefits of chlorinated water because the provincial government has decided that we require chlorinated water because there's a legislation that says after a certain population size, we must have chlorinated water, okay? And so we've reached that size. So we can't get rid of the chlorinated water. And I guess the only way to continue having clean water is to ensure that, for example, our water table and our water sources aren't polluted and aren't contaminated by other factors. And all those other factors usually come down to human beings, right? So our water table and our rivers, I'll probably endeavor to protect as much as I can so that we always have our awesome, clean drinking water, even though now it's chlorinated. Did that get to your answer? Thank you. And then there was a young lady over here. Yes, you.
What are you going to do?
It's okay.
If I ask you, what are you going to do about the 100 people in Chilliwack?
Okay. Let's be clear. I, as a person and as mayor, can't really do much about the hungry people in Chilliwack. So having said that, what I can do is I can encourage council to be sympathetic and compassionate towards people who are homeless, people who are hungry, and people who are, without means. So we could enact bylaws that supported them, that enabled them to get housing cheaper. I understand that, for example, in Vancouver, there was a rumor going around that they were thinking of enacting a bylaw that limited the rent on certain types of housing so that people could at least be housed properly. Like I can't very well give away free food yet, although I have thought about that. I don't know how that would work. Pardon? Food bank, yeah, but the food bank's doing that already, right? And the only way that we can support the food bank is to give the food bank more food, right? Okay. Pardon?
Like it's everybody's job to help the people who are hungry in Chilliwack.
Yeah, right. And so I would try to make that process easier, right? So what's the name of the young lady there? What's your name?
Aaliyah.
Aaliyah? So Aaliyah, I guess I would have to begin really talking to the council and talking to people in Chilliwack about changing their attitude and culture towards people who are without means, right? And that would have to begin with you guys, right? So like this young man had a great comment, which was, it's everybody's kind of responsibility in some sense to give a helping hand upon occasion, right? And so that's probably where I would want to go with that as well, right? It's the same issue as safety, right? If you know who your neighbor is and you feel safe with them and you hang out with them and you play with them, then if they're hungry, you're probably going to give them a snack, right? Or we care about each other a little bit. And I think adults sometimes forget that, in all honesty. So yeah, good question. And then you had one more, Nick?
If I elected you, how would you make sure that Chilliwack's guard is safe?
Guarded? Safely. So are we talking guarded from invasion, guarded from crime, or just, okay, from crime. All right. Okay, here's a quick question I asked about this one. How many people feel that their neighborhood is safe? Yeah. No. Okay. Okay. So yeah, that's an interesting question, right? So some people feel their neighborhood is safe, and some people feel their neighborhood isn't safe. And so if I was living in one of those safer neighborhoods, I wouldn't want to see police roaming around all the time, because that would make me feel unsafe. But if I was in one of those not safe neighborhoods, then maybe the presence of a police officer or two might be okay, right? And so that would be part of the issue that I would see, is that if we all agree that we need more police presence in Chilliwack, where should it go, and who should see that, right? Now I fully think, and I'll probably push for increased funding to police and first responders in general, right? Because I would like to see more of those responding quickly. And then I've said it before in other interviews, so I'll say it here as well. And I think people really need to have a couple block parties, right? Where you get out, you meet your neighbor, you see who they are, you figure out that they're not, okay, here's another. How many people have one neighbor in their neighborhood that's kind of scary? Right? Do you know that person?
No.
No, why? Yeah, why? Okay. If you don't know them, do you not know them because they're kind of scary? Yeah, right? So you don't know who they are, right? So for all you know, they're very nice people, right? But because you've just had a bad first impression, right, you don't know them, right? And so I think if people got to know their neighbors a bit more, and then you would feel a bit safer and be a bit safer, because everybody would be helping each other, right? For example, in my neighborhood, when my car got broken into, 5 of my neighbors called the police, I think, right? Because they're like, hey, you know, that's not Cauchi. He's not in his car. That's some other person trying to get into his car, right? And so that's kind of what needs to happen, I think, for neighborhoods, is that kind of working together. And that way the police know who to go and get versus just not. Yeah. Wow, now I'm rambling. I apologize. You had a question?
Is this a completely different question? Also, because we have got time for one more. So
Oh, last one. Oh, lucky you. Okay.
If I elect you, will you add more books to our libraries?
Absolutely. Well, okay. Let's back that up a bit. Will I personally add more books to your library? And do you just mean this library or every school library?
Like, I mean, like the public libraries.
Oh, the public library? Sure, I can do that. I can gladly go and donate a couple of my books to the public library, right? And that's about it. That's what I can do, right? Because if you're asking, can I give more money to the public library so they can buy more books? I cannot do that all on my own. Again, I would have to get the council to do it with me, and I will. And yes, I will. If it ever comes up again, what's your name?
Logan.
Logan, if I am mayor and you come to a council meeting, or a parent of yours comes to the council meeting and you say, hey, Cauchi, what about your thing for books? I'll be like, done. I'll try to push it. All right. Because I think people should read more. Okay.
So, Mr. Cauchi, if we can kind of summarize all this. In the beginning, you mentioned there are 4 things that are often come up in your discussions.
Yeah.
Transportation, policing,
environment, and business.
Out of those 4, personally, which is the most important to you?
Safety. Right. And the reason why is because it's been my experience. Because if you don't know, I'll tell you. I come from a social support worker background, right? So I would work with people below the means, so to speak. And it's been my experience that once people feel safe, they can improve their lives, right? But if people aren't safe, then that's a very complicated and very bad problem to have, right? So once we get that safety issue dealt with, then we can probably move forward. And ideally, we should move forward with all 4 at the same time. But I don't know how many balls the council can juggle at once, right? Because it might be a whole new council.
Yes. So, Central, I think it's really important that we show our appreciation for Mr. Cauchi for sharing his valuable time with us today and helping us understand government at the local level a little bit better than we did yesterday. So, can you please give Mr. Cauchi a round of applause? For those watching online, that kind of concludes our presentation. And Mr. Cauchi, thank you.
No, thank you. It
Good
was
luck
fun.
on your journey.
Thank you.
And we will be happy to share the results of our vote with the real vote, November the 15th. And yeah, we're trying to raise a generation of kids that care and kids that get off their bum and take the opportunity to speak when that's given to them.
Yeah.
And with the lowest voter turnout in the last municipal election in the Lower Mainland, we hope to address that with what we're doing here. So
Nope. I
really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
It was
you.
awesome.
Bye.
Bye.